On any given day, about 20% of the workforce in industrialized countries are on the night shift. Construction workers, taxi drivers, waitstaff, cashiers, medical professionals. The list goes on. That's a big crowd of sleepyheads, and also an alarming possibility of fatigue-induced accidents. How can shift workers stay focused and reduce workplace injuries, and how can they best recover from the graveyard shift? I'd tell you once my shift is over. Shift work is a vital part of the labor force. But when you have to work at a time that is meant for sleeping, and sleep when the sun is at its zenith, problems, sleep-related or otherwise, are bound to occur. For this experiment, I slip into the topsy-turvy shoes of a shift worker. Dr. Joshua Gooley will be tracking how my body interacts with the environment to see exactly how shift hours affect human physiology and neurobehavioral performance. First, I need to understand the challenges I'm up against. What makes shift work so difficult? Dr. Lim Li Ling, Director of the Sleep Disorders Unit at Singapore General Hospital and President of the Singapore Sleep Society, has the answers. Shift work, she explains, refers to any work pattern not conforming to the typical 8-hour daytime schedule. Often people think of rotating shifts, morning from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., afternoon from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., then overnight from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I mentioned that I'll be working the overnight shift for my experiment. How does that affect body and mind? Shift work is deeply unphysiological, Dr. Lim replies. You're trying to work during a time you're designed to be asleep and sleep when you're normally awake. Naturally, that leads to problems. There's a term, shift work disorder. It describes the cluster of medical issues that arise. Shift workers generally get less sleep, around 90 minutes less than non-shift workers, and sometimes turn to unhelpful coping measures like sleeping pills, alcohol, or smoking. Their bodies remain in conflict with the usual day-night cycle. We throw around expressions like body clock or biological clock. Dr. Lim says it's very real. A circadian clock that orchestrates daily body rhythms. We're programmed to be awake in the daytime, asleep at night, which is normally between, say, midnight and 7 or 8 a.m. The same clock influences hunger, digestion, hormone levels. When your routine syncs with this internal clock, you function best. Shift work throws everything off. It's similar to jet lag, traveling across many time zones, forcing you to eat when you're not hungry and sleep when your body isn't ready. Dr. Lim says the stress on the body can be significant. Shift workers commonly report poor sleep, digestive upsets. One reason they face higher rates of health issues. Before I start my overnight shift, any advice? Get enough sleep beforehand, Dr. Lim urges. During the shift, you'll be tired, so you may rely on caffeine in moderation. When you're finished and head home, try wearing dark glasses. Exposure to bright light can sabotage your attempts to sleep in the daytime. Then, make your room as quiet and dark as possible. Heavy curtains, lights off, phone off or silent, and get your family on board to let you rest. It sounds complicated, but I'll try. My goal is to see how well I manage this role reversal. A supervisor might care only about when I clock in and clock out, not about circadian rhythms. So let's see what it's like having these two clocks, my body's and my workplace's, completely out of sync. For this experiment, I take a 10-hour overnight shift at a cheerful dim sum restaurant to gauge how shift work impacts my physiology and performance. But first, I check in with Dr. Joshua Gooley, head of the Chronobiology and Sleep Laboratory at Duke NUS Medical School. He'll be measuring me throughout the night. No special preparation needed, he says. Just live your life as Adrian normally would, then show up for the night shift, do the reaction tests, and afterwards we'll evaluate your sleep. I nod, then head off. By 8 p.m., it's time to clock in at the restaurant. Wish me luck, I say, yawning slightly. Alfred, my little potted portulaca plant at home, has already closed his blooms for the night, a reminder that he too has a biological clock. The restaurant's manager, Joyce, greets me. Your shift is from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Duties: seat customers, take orders, carry food. The customer is always right. Sure enough, Dr. Gooley appears, taking a seat. I'd like onion pancakes and bean curd prawn rolls. Right away, sir. I hustle to keep up with orders. Meanwhile, Dr. Gooley soon calls me over for a quick reaction time test. A simple screen flash, me pressing a button as fast as I can. I also rate how sleepy I feel on a scale. At 10 p.m. I'm feeling a bit weary, but not too bad. Not too shabby, Dr. Gooley says. You're around 200 milliseconds. Keep it up. Midnight hits. The restaurant stays busy. Orders keep me on my toes, no dozing off. Dr. Gooley departs, leaving me alone to survive the shift. 1 a.m. passes, 2 a.m., my eyes grow heavier. By 3 a.m., I'm longing for a bed. At 4 a.m., we do another reaction test, and it's clear I'm slower. My times degrade. I make more mistakes carrying dim sum trays. But the work doesn't stop. By 6 a.m., I'm free at last. My shift ends, leaving me thoroughly exhausted. From the sleep series, I know driving sleepy is a hazard. So a taxi whisks me to two final procedures. First, an fMRI, functional MRI brain scan to measure how my sleep-deprived mind handles cognitive tasks. Then a home-based sleep study with sensors. At the fMRI lab, I do tasks while the scanner peeks inside my brain. I try my best, but I'm drained. Soon after, I head home to collapse, wired up to measure how well, or poorly, I sleep in daylight. Alfred is wide open, soaking sunshine, while I must block it out. A day or two later, Dr. Gooley reconvenes to share the results. Adrian, your reaction time started fine. Then around 2-4 a.m. you slowed significantly. That's typical of the circadian dip. You rated yourself extremely sleepy. In real shift work, that's prime territory for accidents. You wore an actigraph, a watch that measures both movement and light exposure. It shows you were exposed to a lot of light during your daytime sleep. That likely shortened and degraded your rest. Our sensors show that out of 4 hours in bed, you got about 2.6 hours of actual sleep, and it was quite restless. That's not good for long-term health or daily functioning. Then there's the fMRI results. Professor Chi, an expert in using MRI for studying cognition under sleep deprivation, explains, when you're well rested, we see more robust activation in areas of the brain linked to attention and decision-making. Under sleep deprivation, those areas underactivate. You can try to focus, but the brain just isn't operating at full capacity. He adds that in some armies, sleep research is used to identify individuals who are naturally less vulnerable to fatigue. Surgeons and emergency workers also need these insights to avoid life or death mistakes while sleep deprived. In 2007, the World Health Organization reclassified night shift work from a possible to a probable human carcinogen. It's believed that suppression of the sleep hormone melatonin, secreted at night in darkness, reduces its protective effect against uncontrolled cell growth. Dr. Lim explains, if melatonin production is disrupted by bright lights at night, that might allow cancer cells to proliferate more. That's likely part of why shift workers show higher cancer rates. What can employers do? Dr. Lim suggests longer rotations, no rapid swapping, don't flip from day shift to night shift too quickly. 2-week stints at a time, forward rotating, mornings, afternoons, nights, can help the body adapt. Shorter shifts for hazardous tasks. If tasks require high vigilance or exposure to toxic chemicals, use shorter shifts. 8 hours instead of 12. Eliminate accidents. Sleepy employees are a safety risk, so giving them proper scheduling ultimately saves costs. Parting thoughts. In the modern 24-hour economy, shift work is here to stay. However, if someone cannot adjust despite best efforts, a change in job or lifestyle may be necessary. As I found, messing with your body clock can wreak havoc on sleep, alertness, and even long-term health. My quick overnight stint taught me a lot. Plan ahead, manage your lighting, and be mindful of your body's clock. Because at 4 a.m., no matter how many dim sum trays you serve, you can't outrun biology. When night is day and day is night, it's easy to lose track of both.